for long-term low emissions development strategy. So first of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to the government of Senegal for welcoming us in the pavilion. Senegal is also one of the countries that will join us on stage today to present their work and reflections on the country's long-term vision, but more on this shortly. Before we get started, we don't have simultaneous translation, as you see. If anyone has serious concerns, we can bring you some of the essentials in French, if needs be. So let me say a couple of words about this project. With funding from the German International Climate Initiative, Philippe Behrens and team is here with us today. The 2050 Pathways platform is actively engaged in supporting 5 countries across various stages of their long-term strategies formulation. The countries under this project are Jamaica, Pakistan, Rwanda, Senegal, and Tanzania will join the group shortly. So central to this effort was a robust focus on fostering national consensus through inclusive and consultative approaches, aiming to pinpoint both the socio-economic and climate aspirations and weaving them into a vision that is genuinely owned by the country. So for some of our partner countries, it was also about giving them space to formulate priorities and questions for later analysis in the context of what is a more integrated approach of the long-term strategy itself with quantification and so on. But it was also an opportunity for us to pilot a step into operationalization with the development of an investment plan, in this case in Rwanda, drawing from the country's green growth and climate resilience strategy, which I believe they will submit as their long-term strategy during this COP. So unfortunately, the focal point for this work, Beatrice Kidza, is taking part in an event of the Task Force for Access to Climate Finance, which is actually co-led in Rwanda by Germany and Sweden. So, and she will talk about the investment plan that we supported in this IKI project. What our hope is of course that the investment plan soon paves the way for actual financing on the identified activities. And in this case, it was in areas of agriculture, soil protection, and resilience. So turning to this session today, we will first hear introductory remarks from Philippe Behrens, who's head of the division of the International Climate Initiative, IKI, in the German Federal Ministry for the Economy and Climate. I hope I got that right, BMWK. This will be followed by a panel conversation which will be animated and moderated by Marcela Jaramillo from the 2050 Pathways platform, who's the program manager of the IKI project with us. But maybe I can also ask Saima Shafiq to join us on the stage here. Also, Mr. Omar Alsak, Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Climate Change Division, Jamaica. Dr. Saima Shafiq is director at the Ministry of Climate Change. Welcome on the stage. And we will soon be joined by our Senegalese colleague, Madeleine. But let me give the floor to Philippe. Philippe, please go ahead. I will have to leave in 15 minutes, but I wish you a very pleasant session. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thanks a lot for having me here. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, from my side as well. It is a great pleasure for me to have the opportunity to give some opening remarks on this important project dealing with a really important issue. Long-term strategies, long-term low-emission development strategies are a key issue for us, and I think they are especially in this year, in the year of the global stocktake. Because the global stocktake is supposed to inform us where we stand with our efforts to implement the Paris Agreement and to come close to 1.5 degrees. And, well, actually, where do we stand? Reading the synthesis report, the UNEP GAP report, and all the other reports that have been published over the last weeks, there's not so much new in it, because they all tell us that there's a huge gap still remaining, an ambition gap and an implementation gap. But this is the year of the global stocktake, so we should all remind ourselves that this should be a wake-up call for all of us. And as Germany, we have this position that at this COP we should use the opportunity to agree upon global goals, such as tripling the renewable energy capacity, doubling energy efficiency, and this being accompanied by the phase out of fossil fuels. And for that, we would need strong, reliable, high quality, and robust long-term strategies. And that's one of the reasons why for the International Climate Initiative, long-term strategies are one key issue. The International Climate Initiative is part of the German finance cooperation on climate, and we are implemented now by 3 ministries. It's our ministry, Economic Affairs and Climate Action. It's the Ministry of the Environment as well as Foreign Affairs. And we just launched our new strategy 1 week ago. And one of our essential targets is to shape socioeconomic environment for climate neutral economies. And for that, we need long-term strategies. So far, the IKI is supporting 25 projects with activities related to long-term strategies, 12 of which are global projects, 3 are regional, and 10 are bilateral projects. And those projects are coming from defining general ideas of long-term planning, going to concrete LTS designing, and also the revision of LTS. And long-term strategies have some really, really important elements. First of all, they should follow an integrated approach with the NDCs. Because only if the NDCs and the LTS are aligned, we can make sure that we have short-term, mid-term, and long-term pathways. And those pathways should be clear for everyone. And that's why we need to bring all stakeholders on board, make sure that everyone is involved in the design, and everyone knows what to expect. And that also comes with the necessity to have a whole-of-government approach, of course, bring all ministries in. And if you have that, you might be able to improve policy and the regulatory framework. And you have a long-term pathway which provides predictability also for the private actors, because LTS and NDCs are supposed to be investment plans. And only if you have the predictability, private actors will be able to invest and will be willing to invest. In the IKI, we are working with several different partners on our LTS projects, such as UNDP, GIZ, the NDC partnership, UNEP, WRI, OECD, and the 2050 Pathways platform. And I can say that we are very grateful for this cooperation, and we are very happy about how professional and competent the projects are implemented. Projects like this one, other projects like the one with WRI, where WRI is in the lead, where we are going to implement or work together with Indonesia, India, and Argentina, and also have a global component. But I would also like to point out that there's a great cooperation with the NDC partnership, also with regards to the NDC partnership thematic call, which has in mind the idea of aligning NDCs and long-term strategies. And there we can see how the expertise of the 2050 pathways really fit into the work of the NDC partnership. And we are very, very grateful with that. Many of our projects also have a global component, and with that we want to make sure that there is an exchange of experiences, like the one we are having here, because it's so important that we learn from each other. And that's why I'm very much looking forward to learning from you today what your experiences are. And let us try to motivate each other and make sure that together we are going to design long-term strategies that really take into account this wake-up call of the global stocktake, that are ready to implement global goals like on renewables, on efficiency, and the phase-out of fossil fuels. And for that, we will need high ambitious, but also very, very robust long-term strategies. And for that, I'm looking forward to the further cooperation, and I'm very curious to hear from you about your experiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip, for that. We are actually very happy to have the opportunity to work with several countries in the process in developing the long-term strategy, all at very different stages. So we're very happy to share this experience, and we hope it's going to be useful for many countries that we know are starting the process or are under developing the process. So to start the panel, I really would like to welcome our panelists, and I would like to start with the case of, welcome, Marlene. So I would like to start from the case of Pakistan. So Pakistan, and Dr. Saima here with us, is actually part of the process, and they are one of the countries that was starting the process of developing the long-term strategy, and you started with the work on developing a long-term vision. And there has been a lot of work on bringing people together in a lot of dialogue and conversation, and we would really like to hear from you, how was the experience of Pakistan having these dialogues and bringing all of that into one document that is setting the foundations for the next stages. And we'd also like to hear challenges, because we know this is difficult and there are challenges that can come across, and we all want to learn from that as well. So we'll also be very curious to know what was one challenge that you found, that you still maybe even working on it at the moment. So please take the floor. I think we have a microphone just here next to Omar.
Hello, it's working. So first of all, thank you very much, Platform 2050 and the support of German government through ICI for the project. And definitely Pakistan is one of the country that was selected for long-term development of the long-term vision. At the time when we started off with the long-term vision, it was quite a new terminology or acronym that was used within the government, and it was very difficult to make people understand that this is how to move about it. And that was a time where long-term, this Platform 2050 helped us to understand that what the process is. So we started our journey through through development of long-term vision. Setting the tone from long-term vision has the challenges, and it has helped us a lot in terms of engaging the stakeholders, because Pakistan has a devolved system of government, where we have the federal government and we have the provincial government. And the type of the federal government, and there are few sectors and departments that are dealt directly by the provincial government, and then there are certain things that are directly led by the federal government through the ministries. So long-term vision has helped us in setting that tone with the federal and the provincial government. Although it was, the start was bit delayed in terms of engaging the relevant stakeholders, but we utilized the approach which we did in development of our NDCs, where the sectoral groups were formalized both at the national and provincial level. Those sectoral groups were reactivated because of the long-term vision, and it has provided us an edge in terms of a kind of a thirst to move forward, because NDCs were developed in 2021, and after the development of NDCs, these groups were dormant, they were not active. So long-term vision has helped us in activating those NDCs working groups. So the same groups were channelized, mobilized to start working and start discussing about the long-term vision. So once the long-term vision was set, another challenge came in, because at that time the government was changed, and there is a new system that has taken in for the time frame when the long-term vision was finalizing. And with the previous government and the new government coming in, they were a bit reluctant to to set that this is our net zero goal or something like that. It's not that they were not committed, it's that they wanted to have a kind of a very detailed working or very scientific kind of work to be there so that they can confidently claim or put their commitment that this will be our commitment for net zero or things like that. So that process has actually started off a discussion in between the stakeholders that what kind of scientific work needs to. So the discussion on MAC curves started with that how to go about these marginal abatement cost curves, why they are important, with which sector we need to start, whether it's the energy sector or the agriculture sector or which sector we need to start with. So the process itself has catalyzed a lot in between. And currently now we are moving forward to these LEDS strategy, and we are hoping that the process will unfold more pathways to work for the provincial and the federal governments to actually go for the concrete actions at the level where the emission reduction is actually happening.
Thank you very much. And please. I think we have seen this in several countries, and it's the importance of working with subnational level, and we have seen it in many countries, and it takes time, as you say, but it's so important that you cannot skip it. It's part of the process, right? And it's also super interesting to see how you're building from NDC structures that you had in the country to move into this worded dialogue of a much more broader conversation. So it is a very interesting work, and we were very happy to support you through that. And thank you very much for sharing those experiences. I would like to now move to Omar from Jamaica. So Omar, Jamaica actually was in a very different stage of Pakistan. Jamaica has already started some work, you already have some analytical work, you have set up also certain governance to carry out the process, and then we came in to help you to bring that together. So it'll be really grateful if you can share with us how was Jamaica experiencing this last year of bringing all these different pieces of work into one final long-term strategy, and also that process with this stakeholder committee and this governance body. And of course, any challenges that we know are always there. So also really helpful if you can share with us some of those, please.
So thank you very much, Marcella. And I guess it would be prudent to firstly thank the ICI, to thank 2050 Pathways, and to also thank Senegal for hosting us here. We're delighted to be able to share as a small island developing state in the Caribbean. We're also proud of some of the accomplishments that we have been able to make. For us, the Paris Agreement states LEDS. So in case persons not identifying the nuance and the differences, while persons are saying generally LTS, long-term strategy. And so for us, even though LEDS is an important element, we went a bit further because as a SIDS, as a vulnerable island state, adaptation is also a critical element for us. And so our long-term strategy involves not only possibilities for emission reduction, but the ability for the country to build its resilience. And so adaptation was critical where that was concerned. And so for us, we call it the long-term emission reduction and climate resilient development strategy instead of just emission development strategies. And so that kind of set the tone for all of the other engagements that we pursued. One of those is, as you had mentioned, being able to conduct several technical reports and assessments, and that was done with support through the NDC partnership. We were able to do an assessment on the institutional framework, an assessment on the potential to even participate in the voluntary carbon market. We did an assessment as it relates to preliminary costing of an LTS, the recommendations for our LTS. We were also able to launch a national climate change research and technological agenda as a result of that engagement. And through all of that, was able to produce as well a synthesis report. to kind of put all those 5, 6, 7, 10 documents together in one coherent place so persons will be able to identify, step by step how everything then relates. Now, even with that being done, we still had not produced a LTS. And so we engaged the 2050 pathways to not only put the document together, but for proper guidance, because they would have had, international knowledge and experience in doing this already. Proper guidance in how to produce something that is robust and reliable and accurate to be able to present to the international community. So with all that background work that was done and technical reports prepared, we had discussion with the cabinet, and cabinet gave instructions for us to develop what is called a multi-stakeholder committee. And that multi-stakeholder committee was tasked with the mandate of overseeing the work of developing the LTS. And with that, we engaged a consultancy who did the technical work, and then we put that document together to be able to present a strategy. So during the process of organizing that work, there was significant, and I don't know how to stress it anymore, significant stakeholder engagement that was done. Because one of the things that government, whether it's cabinet or the parliament, looks for is that there is consultation with the relevant stakeholders, that they have the buy-in and that they also are able to interact and indicate what the sector needs to go forward. And so once we're able to prove that, then it's a little bit easier for them to approve and to go forward. So now we've done most or all of that work, the engagement. We've put a draft final report together, and it is to be considered now by the cabinet for approval. We are fairly confident that if it's not this year, it's at least before the end of the next quarter of next year, that we will have that approved and have a long-term strategy submitted as Jamaica's commitment to the UNFCCC.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that, Omar, and we'll look forward to see that strategy submitted. And indeed, as it was a very good example, because you have done so much work in Jamaica, you have an analytical work, but that analytical work really just come to life when you have the stakeholder conversation. And it was such an essential element for the country. So that was a very interesting experience. So thank you for that. And now I would like to actually properly introduce Ms. Madeleine Diouf from the Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development of Senegal, who is actually kindly hosting us here today. So really happy to have you. Thank you so much. And Senegal is another very interesting example, and it really just shows that countries can start this work from different angles and different circumstances, but it will still be very important to follow certain key elements of that process. And what you have done in Senegal is you started also to bring together a vision, and also having quite an stakeholder engagement at several levels. So we will be really happy to hear from you as well. What has been the experience? You have and bringing together a lot of national processes linked to this. So we'll be really happy to hear also Senegal experience, and also share with us challenges that you may be facing. You're still in the process, right? So that will always be very welcome by many countries that are starting. So please take the floor.
Thank you, Marcela, and welcome to Senegalese pavilion. Senegalese, we used to be, is the country of teranga, of hospitality. We really thank you for also coming to visit us, and I think it's also a good opportunity to really bring developing parties together. I was in a small island development state pavilion before coming here. So thank you for your experience, and we can learn a lot from that. Regarding Senegal, actually we have been really been supported by 2050 pathway. We are also being supported by the Agence Française de Développement, AFD, who is also with us regarding the elaboration of our long-term strategy. The issue is also how to define the pathway for Senegal to go to the net zero, because we didn't yet say when we will have the net zero. So these are elements important. But to do that and to move on that way, it was been important for us also to look at the vision. We have in Senegal what we call the national vision with the head of state, Plan Sénégal Émergent. This vision is until 2035. And there is a need to take under this vision climate change. We have developed our NDCs, so, and we need to revise our NDCs for the next round of NDC by 2025. So this allows us, by combining these different tools, to really elaborate on where we want to bring Senegal as far climate change is concerned, as far development is concerned. So these are a combination that we require. Senegal also discovers some oil. We are also not oil, but gas producer. So these are things also we need to see how moving with climate change requirement, particularly moving on this direction of really looking for net zero by 2050, how Senegal will be embarked. So it's why we really take these opportunities to talk together. What is the vision of Senegal in this global climate paradigm? And I think it's important. So what we have done is we invite all stakeholders. It was not easy because you need really to challenge head of state, minister, really to see this the level of importance of working on this strategy, long-term strategy. I think it's really important. It's something we have also worked with the Ministry of Energy in charge of oil. So they are also part of this process. They really also, so it was an opportunity for them really to see how also they're gonna strategize on and how they're gonna also move from the gas to the renewable energy or clean energy. So I think these are really been a collaborative approach within different ministries. We have also the Ministry of High Finance who have joined us in order to look at, and Ministry of Planning, to look at really how we will organize the vision. In doing that, we know that we need civil society. So we were being able to have some, what we call some champion. So champion on different thematic. Champion on energy. For the energy, we bring some former minister who used also to be really engaged on renewable energy initiative. They were the one who was really guiding the discussion around energy, around low carbon development pathway. We bring also from the Ministry of Industry some champion, the director of deployment of clean industry strategy. We bring from the Ministry of Agriculture some universal, from some NGO who are also around agroecology. So we bring all these champions in order really to guide the different thematic. So it's not only government concern, we have all actors to see in each thematic where we want to bring Senegal, taking on account the climate crisis. So, as you say, we were being able also to bring, to go to regional setting, talk with communities, talk with mayor. This was important. So climate change is not only the state defining the way, you have to go on the ground to bring also what are the challenge they are facing and how also local state want to also take on board climate change. So this was really a inclusive process. We were being able to validate the technical first report under the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Energy. So I think this was key, and we were also having the Ministry of Finance and Planning close to us. And what we expect is in the coming, after the COP, to bring it to the head of state level. So to really check with all the government that this vision is what we want. We already defined the vision. What we want is a Senegal prosper, taking on board climate change by 2050. And we will work also on the detail of this vision, move to the LTS, where we will have maybe a quantum regarding where we think the Senegal will be in a position to achieve the net zero emission. So these are things we're working hard. And I think what is good is also to know that our policymakers are also engaged. We used to have some panel, some consultation with parliamentaries. So it was also just to update them and also to share with them where we want to bring the vision of Senegal. So these are where we are. I think it's an exciting journey, but as I say, we have all category of actors, in particular the policymakers, part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madeleine. And you can see there is a very common thread here on stakeholder engagement. And we have really seen a very interesting work going on in Senegal with so many different actors engaged and seeing the reach across ministers in the economy to really help co-build, co-design this vision. So thank you very much for sharing that. So before I go into a last round of questions with the panel, I do want to also open the space. In case any of you in the audience has a question, feel free to raise your hand. We will be happy to ask anything to our panelists about their specific country experience. So feel free to raise your hand whenever you want. But if there are no questions, in the meantime, I can ask mine, but feel free to ask any question. So my last question to all of you really is, can you share with us what is coming next, right? Because this is a process that is still ongoing, and we cannot overemphasize the idea of being a process, of not just being a document, but this live process, this live document. And so we really would like to hear from you, what are the next steps from Pakistan now that you completing the long-term vision? Please share.
Thank you. So from our side, we are very clear that after developing this strategy, even at this moment, what we are doing is that we need to have a kind of an investment plan or financial plan to actually execute all this, and obviously to identify the gaps and challenges in between the process as well, to strengthen our governance structure, not at the federal and the provincial level, but also at the district level, because the actual implementation might take in certain sectors at the district or the union council level as well. So it's an extensive work that needs to be done in terms of the building blocks that are required to actually unlock the strategy for its real implementation. So investment or the financial costing plan is important. The MAC curves are important. The identification of the real priority sectors are important. So this is already in process, and on the way forward, we are already identifying that where are the gaps which can be covered. We know what can be covered through Platform 2050, but we need to know that what needs to be covered through other stakeholders, and what are those financial gaps in terms of its execution, and where the government can put in their own resources to actually make it happen. Because we really, we do understand that the support that is coming from international partner and stakeholders, or the support mechanism is not cannot cover everything. It is kind of a catalyst that is coming in. So the real resources or the financial channelization has to be done through the government, by the government, and that is the key to success to actually make it happen on ground.
Thank you very much. And indeed, that country ownership and, bringing all those partners to the table. And we have been working with you on that, and it has been really a pleasure. So thank you very much for sharing. And Omar, now coming to Jamaica, I know you also now moving ahead. We started with a little bit of an operationalization plan, but I know you have much more work there. So please share with us the plans for Jamaica and next steps.
All right, so thanks again, Marcela. So much of the next steps align very well with what Pakistan just mentioned. So we have a final draft of the LTS. We also have a final operationalization plan to assist us in terms of implementing the LTS. Now, the next step for us is to develop an investment plan. Who should be involved? How much would be required from private sector versus from the government of Jamaica coffers versus from NGOs and so on and so forth. Our development partners. And so we're looking to put something in place to be able to develop that plan. There's also a cost-benefit analysis that we are looking to engage on developing to find out, given that, we have now this LTS in place, if we are successful in achieving what it is set out to achieve, what does that mean for society? What does that mean for the economy? And so analysis as relates to that is also expected to be done on the LTS. There is also the engagement that we have to do with private sector, development partners, and so on. So we did engagement to get to the stage of developing the document. There's a different level of engagement needed now for them to actually assist us to implement what it is that they say the sector's needed. And so that requires financing oftentimes. And so that's why the investment plan is so important to us. But engagement with the private sector, the NGOs, the civil society, other government, ministries, departments, and agencies as well, will now be important to actually implement and put the monies up front to ensure that we achieve what the LTS has set out to achieve. Very, very recently, with support from the Planning Institute of Jamaica, who really are in charge of development for the country, who also oversee our Vision 2030 Jamaica National Development Plan. The SDG Secretariat is also located there. So it's all tied into what is trying to be done for us, and in the long term. They also developed a climate finance strategic framework, which is really aimed at guiding the efficient allocation of official development assistance to tackle climate change. And so with that document and framework in place as well, it assists us with the engagement with our developing partners. And that framework also identifies a number of priority projects that were also identified in the LTS to go forward. And so we're trying as best as possible to keep everything nice and tight and, that we're not straying too far from what it is that we're looking to do. So there's a plan in place to go forward, and everybody is along with that plan. And so that's really how we intend to go forward. But again, the approval of the LTS by the cabinet, first and foremost, will guide everything else that will happen. Thanks.
Indeed, thank you. That high-level political support will still be very important to bring to the table so many stakeholders, right, inside the government, outside the government, and get into more details, right? Now you're getting into more details, so you can engage in much more detailed conversation of what are we doing, where the investments are needed, what kind of investments. So definitely going on in a very interesting process and next steps, and we'll have been very happy to go with you in this journey. So it has been a pleasure. Madeleine, so same for you. So we know as well Senegal actually is in the middle of a whole process, and big steps are coming up for you. So we're really happy to also hear from you. How is that coming together? How do you see it, in the next months coming along?
Yeah, Thank you, and I think thank for our previous speaker, Pakistan and Jamaica. We will learn a lot from them, and I hope with 2050 pathway we will have all the information required in order really to really take on board your experience and lesson learned, and how we can also use it for Senegal. We will have a roadmap we need to establish after the COP. There is something we need to finalize, is the LTS. So the vision will allow us all together to be in the same board. And now on the LTS, we have all this modeling we have to go through in order to see for each thematic, what can we do as emission, what can we do as adaptation. So this is where we want to go, and how it's linked with also the economy and the development Senegal strategy. I think this is important. So we expect to have our LTS by the end, by June this year. So I think this we have to work all together at the national level to ensure that this is coherent with our development pathway, but it's take on board the climate requirement. Is take on board. It gives us also where we need to go by 2050. Noting that, as I say, our planning is stopped with a PSA at 2035. So we need to make some assessment where Senegal have to be in 2050, and with really low carbon development, and why not zero emission. So these are where we want to go. We will need also investment plan. And what I want to say also, we have our next NDC coming. So the link between what we're doing and the next NDC is important, because it's in 25 we have to present a new NDCs. So all this coherence approach have to be really the consistency on this different planning, and also where we want to engage our development pathway. It's not only on mitigation, but it's also adaptation. So I want to flag that. And it's also important really to work on that way. So as I say, by mid of next year, we expect to have both the LTV and also the LTS. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that as well. And again, we have here a lot of commonalities, and indeed, sharing experiences is so helpful. You know, the experiences on the ground, the different approaches to similar questions that come up in the different countries, right? But definitely this coherence with national planning, which is an effort that you all have undertaken, as well as similar coherence with other planning like the NDCs, it just helps as well to streamline and to build over like systems you already have in place. So for us, it really, again, it has been a complete honor to work with you and to support you through this process. And before I close the panel, we want to be sure we're on time. You're going to probably many other events. Just want to give a second to see if anyone has a question. Please, a question, Omar? Maybe we can.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the panelists. All panelists really mentioned in the stakeholder consultation the connection to regional, local, and federal governments. And so one of the questions I had was, do you foresee any legislative or policy changes that would have to come to really implement the strategies? Thank you.
Yes, it's gonna be not easy. It's gonna be not easy because, as you mentioned, we have local government, city government. Close to you, you have a close mayor. So, and also we have a head of state and the government objective. So it's how them to work together. In particular for adaptation, I think this is maybe something where we need to build the coherence on how we working together. between the national and the local. So I think we need to create this space, and we look at the interlink and the consistency. So the LTV is a first step. When you implement, you start doing the LTS is another stage. But I think this give you opportunity to create space, and this space will allow you to start working on some policy to establish. We're saying that we have in Senegal, I think, more than 500 local government. So you need to work together. If you want us to have investment that is significantly in line with the resilience we want to build, we need to create these synergies, having mayor, local government working together, and also working with the government. So having this clear, so it's a lot of energy, a lot of space of consultation, but it's also why you need to, in the beginning, to start with all. They are all embarked, they know where we are having the same objective, and this is how we expect this will continue. Thank you.
Sure, thank you for that. Thank you for that question, Mr. Sweeney from Jamaica. So, for us, we recently revised our climate change policy framework. And certainly the LTS, when approved, will inform the next round of revision for that policy framework. We currently do not have legislation or regulation dedicated for climate change. And so maybe this would set some basis or standard to be able to build on developing regulations or legislations. What we have been doing is really piggybacking, that's the word I use, piggybacking on existing environmental regulations and legislation, because they all go for climate change on some level, whether it's air quality or something like that. But now, given that climate change is at the forefront of much of the discussion, not only nationally, not only regionally, but internationally, it might be prudent to actually have legislation regulations in place. And so those might be where I can see now that we might need to do some tweaking as relates to push this climate agenda even further than it is now. Thanks.
So the case for Pakistan is a bit different, but we do understand that whenever the strategies are coming in, we develop it in alignment with the existing rules, regulations, and legislation. But in the in the development, there are certain areas or aspects which actually emerge to have the need for the more legislations or regulations to actually execute them. So it's a two-way process. But in between, in Pakistan, we have Climate Change Act that is there, and under that Climate Change Act, we are establishing Climate Change Authority. Rather, I would say that it's established, its functionalization is in process. So our Climate Change Authority will be the custodian of many of such things. But in between, we do understand that there are few revisions and reviews that will happen to the existing policies. Definitely, our new NDCs are coming in. And then with these things, the legislation will also be reviewed, or legislative analysis or review will happen, but it might not happen right away. It might happen later on, but our act and authority will be the custodian of all these things.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you very much also for the question. So I think with that, we're very happy to close the event. I would really like to thank our panelists for taking the time, for sharing the experiences, Philip as well for making it and sharing also some views, and for all of you that are here. We're really happy to be able to help share the experiences and the work that you're doing on the ground, in the hope that this can help many, many more countries to advance on these processes that so many countries are undertaking right now in the long-term planning. So thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a rest of a good day. Thanks.